Good day, and welcome to another edition of The Nature of Healing, brought to you by Bolts of Love. My name is Jen Shepherd, and this time, this space is a place where we can delve into those profound mysteries of life, of how we live, how we love, how that journey we do towards wholeness and healing. And in each episode, we try just a little bit to share an aspect of what you may consider for healing, what works for others, and what may also work for you, how we can be vulnerable with ourselves and move on this journey that, yes, it's a physical one, we're human, but it's also a voyage of our spirit and a pilgrimage into our own soul and our own selves. And in knowing ourselves and working towards wholeness in ourselves, we work towards and we understand and we unfold that alignment that we have with our spiritual nature, that 100% of us, that spiritual aligning with the 100% of us that is human. So today is a very special day because we move into a time of this podcast where we have a guest. It's our first guest. Up until now, it's been a lot of me speaking with you. And today, the space opens up to share space with a lovely, beautiful woman who is on a journey of organization and helping people organize and declutter and move things out of their lives that doesn't help them celebrate their life and doesn't help bring all that stability and the pursuit of wholeness for themselves. So I'm going to allow her to introduce herself in just a moment. Again, my name is Jen Shepherd. Thank you so much for being on this journey with us. Welcome to The Nature of Healing, where we celebrate life, love, and the pursuit of wholeness. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Jen.
I'm so glad you agreed to talk with us today. And you're going to be the actual first live guest on Nature of Healing, because up until now, they've just heard me talk. It's just me talking straight. So we get a different voice today, which is great.
Nice.
And why don't we start off with telling us who you are?
Okay. My name is Jessica Waters, and for about a little bit over 25 years, I had a very successful professional organizing business, kind of based out of Los Angeles, but I work with clients all over the country, helping them get organized, declutter, let go of stuff, and let go of their stuff, and make their lives a lot happier. And about a year and a half ago, my husband and I decided to move to Chile, the country of Chile. And so I had to completely reconfigure the way that I provided the service of my business. So I had worked multiple times with people over like video chat on working on their issues of clutter. And through that, and also through working with people in person, I realized that I never once saw a situation where clutter wasn't based on emotional overwhelm. It just didn't happen. And the times when people were willing to show up for that, when they were willing to confront their clutter or the emotions underneath the clutter, then the actual clutter literally just disappeared. It was so easy for them to take care of that.
So the extra stuff I have hanging around in my living room that doesn't need to be there, you're saying that there's probably, maybe, some kind of an emotional something going on there. So is that, I guess, for me, maybe a definition, like, does that mean, like, some stuff is pictures of my children? Okay.
Yep.
So is that the same or different than what you're talking about?
Well, it depends. Like when you say some of it is pictures of my children, would you call the pictures of your children clutter?
No, I would call them memories.
Yeah. So it's not like things in your house that you love and you appreciate and you want to be there is clutter. It's not. I mean, you might not, maybe you wish that it was more artfully arranged, or, you know, I don't know, but it's not clutter if you love it and you appreciate it and you're glad that it's there.
Okay, so what's the definition of clutter then?
Well, some people say that clutter is an unmade decision, a delayed decision. So if you throw something down on the table, you haven't decided to put it away where it belongs. Or if you are hoarding books, that college notebooks, because for whatever reason, you've decided not to move on from that period of time in your life. So it's very interesting. I once read that the word clutter, the origin, or one of the earlier origins of the word clutter, comes from the Middle English word to clot. So when you think about flow, and then you think about a clot, isn't that what clutter is? You know, you walk into a room and your energy stops at the clutter. It's the flow is broken by the clutter.
So physically, it'd be like a clot in our blood system. It's just not going to help us work at all. And you have to have that cleared
Yeah,
out.
it's a blockage in the system of flow. Yeah. Because when you think about it, and I think you and I talked about it before, that everything is energy. Everything is, and the purpose, the goal in our lives, in anything that we're talking about, whether it's relationships or work or finances, is for things to flow. So if you have a blockage in any part of that, it not only stops the flow from happening in that area, but it also affects all the other areas as well, usually. Not always, but usually.
Okay, so I'm going to come to you as a client. And I say, Jessica, I have so much stuff and I just need to get rid of it. And I can't even move around my living room. So,
Okay.
So where do I start?
Okay, that's sort of the main question that everybody asks. Where do I start? And the real question is, doesn't really matter. I mean, does it matter where you start? You just have to start somewhere. But with the process that I do when I work with people, it's a little bit different. It's very different, actually, than how other organizers help people. If someone like you, if you were willing to look underneath the physical clutter that you have in your environment and really examine what the emotional blockage was, what I would do is I would say, I would have you go with a pad and paper when no one else was around, so that you had all the time in the world to do this for yourself. I'd say to you, okay, the first thing you want to do is, when you imagine your home, where's the place that when you think about it, it causes you the most frustration and stress? So maybe you could answer that question.
In my home, the most frustration?
Yeah.
The kitchen.
Okay.
My most frustration.
And where in the kitchen, like, do you feel that super frustration?
A counter. There's one particular countertop I can think of, and the sink.
Okay, so let's just take the countertop as an example.
Okay.
So what I would have, my belief, my experience is that all clutter it has energetic noise. Even if we can't hear it with our actual ear, with our audio apparatus, it is still vibrating like noise does, like sound does, and it's affecting us. So what I would say, and usually clutter is screaming. It's not just talking, it's screaming at you. So I would say, go to that counter, maybe sit down if you can, or stand up. It doesn't really matter. Get very still and quiet and listen to what that clutter that's right in front of you is telling you. So sometimes when people have clutter in their kitchen, it's about nourishing themselves or nourishing their family. Sometimes it's about not feeling like like I'm not being taken care of, like I'm not being nourished by anyone in my life.
I would probably head towards that one if I was going to be honest, but I'll let you keep going with other options.
Oh, no, it's not even, I mean, there's as many options as there are people. It's just there's a lot of similarity between one person and the next, but everybody has their own experience. Like somebody else might go into the kitchen and not have that experience at all. And you might go into a place where somebody else is very triggered and not have that experience at all. I'll give you a couple of examples. I had a client who, when we walked into her bedroom, the entire bed was completely covered with stuff, like miscellaneous, huge, piled high. And it was her bed that she had with her husband, but there wasn't room for another person there. And we began to talk about that. Like, how come you have literally blocked him out of your romantic life? And she finally had to take a look at that. That was something that was really important. Another thing was that somebody else, another client of mine, her house was absolutely pristine, like everything was perfect. And she had called me to come over, and I went there and I said to her, I don't understand. Like, why did you call me? I'd be happy if I left right now, if this was the result. And she said, yeah, but take a look at my guest room. And she opened the door, and there was a room that was very impacted. You could feel it. There was a lot of rage in there, and there was a lot of sadness in there. So, we just talked about how we might approach cleaning the clutter out and everything. And we left the room and we began talking about other things. And she mentioned that her best friend had passed away, and she'd been grieving that. And that's where her best friend used to sleep when she would come visit. And so all of a sudden for her, it was like a light bulb moment of like, oh, I'm covering up the grief of my best friend passing away. I have so much anger that she left me, and I have so much sadness about it. And I feel so frustrated and alone, and all these emotions came pouring out. And then it was so easy for us to clean the room because there wasn't the emotional burden, baggage that weighing on her shoulders. It was just stuff that we had to, figure out what to do with.
So do you find that once the recognition has been made, that's enough to get the flow started for the decluttering, or are these people
It definitely helps. I mean, usually people need to have some sort of a purging, like a catharsis moment. It's not so much about like, oh, I figured it out in my head and now I can declutter. No, you have to actually go to that feeling and really engage with it and kind of listen to it. If it's okay, I'll use the example that you mentioned. Yeah, maybe the clutter on my kitchen counter is because I don't feel like anybody is nourishing me. So there'd be a lot of feelings around that. I would imagine there would be loneliness, there would be frustration, there would be resentment, all those feelings. It's not just enough to know that, gee, that sounds right. Yeah, now I can go clean up my counter. It's more like, I need to write about this. I need to meditate. I need to pray. Whatever people do to integrate.
Integrate. I love that. I love that word, integrate. That is perfect.
Yeah. So whatever they need to do to integrate those uncomfortable feelings and befriend them really in order to move on. Okay, I'll give another example. I had a woman who, a deeply devoted woman, and she told me that this was an online consult. She told me that she had a home-based business, but when she would go into her home office, it was like clutter everywhere, all over the desk, all over the floor. She showed me pictures everywhere, and it was very, very chaotic, very chaotic. And after we went through this series of the exercises and processes that I work with people, the next week, when she got to church, she told her husband to go in with the kids. I'll meet you later. And she went off, and she was able to uncover some very, very upsetting memories that she had from her early childhood that she hadn't even thought of, and of course never connected it with success in her business. And she said she screamed, and she went somewhere that was quiet and private, and she sat in her car and she just cried and cried and screamed and cried. And when she was done, she was exhausted, but within 2 or 3 days, her office was like set up, ready to go, everything she wanted.
What you're saying is it's kind of like this barrier that we put up so we don't have to feel the things that are uncomfortable. It's almost like we're trying to protect ourselves in a way to not feel those things, but in protecting ourselves, there's no movement.
Right, exactly. It is a barrier. And it's very much like if people are overweight, they put on the protection layer so that they don't have to experience life, one like I don't know what the word would be, but there's an immediacy or a vulnerability that you would then have if all the cards were laid out on the table. And it's that way with clutter. Let's say you walked into your kitchen and you looked at that clutter on the counter and you realized, it really, really makes me so angry that I'm always nurturing other people, but I don't feel like anybody's nurturing me. Then I can experience those feelings, and I can say those words, but it's a process. It's not something that just snap your fingers. But then you realize that you are empowered to make choices. Like you can speak to the people that you feel you would like nourishment from and encouragement and support, or you can change your situation so that those people aren't in your life anymore, or you can change your attitude about it and say, you know what, I'm doing this, I'm nurturing other people for me, not as a transaction. So, and there's obviously more choices. I'm just listing those three. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is that you're empowered with choices now. You can be more clear-headed. You're not working off of past emotions and trauma and knee-jerk reactions and resentments and everything like that.
So really, when you got into the decluttering work, did you think it was going to be I'm helping people heal, or did you think I just want to make everybody's house pretty?
Yeah, I mean, it actually started, wow, such a long time ago, in the 80s. I drove across country from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I had set it up so that I could stop and visit friends along the way. And every place that I went, and this was long before there was such a thing as an organizer or anybody thought of any of this stuff, I'd go to people's houses and I'd notice that like their kitchen like I'd go get a glass of water and I'd open their kitchen cabinet and it was just like a mess, and it drove me nuts. And I'd say, do you mind if I just reorganize your kitchen cabinets? And they were like, no, please. And so I did this all the way across country. But I never thought about making a career out of it. It just wasn't a thing that people talked about. So years later, somebody told me, oh, I saw this woman on Oprah and she called herself a professional organizer. And I went, oh, that's me. I'm a professional organizer. So I just started telling people, oh, I'm a professional organizer. Really? Do you organize parties? Do you organize political events? No, I organize people's homes and offices. And I started getting business because no one had ever heard of it. And then I moved to LA. I had been living in a small town. And then I moved to LA. And there was actually an organization called the National Association of Professional Organizers. And they had a monthly meeting. And so the thing I learned the most from that organization was how to be a businesswoman. I already knew how to do the organizing. And I always did it differently than other people. Because to me, anything you do has a spiritual base, anything, everything. And so for me, creating that harmony that happens when people are able to let go of things that were holding them back or weighing them down, it was just the most beautiful and honoring. I felt honored to be part of people's processes. One of my first clients, she was a high-powered businesswoman, and she had me come and we organized her closet. She had a big walk-in closet, very typical of LA, just like huge closet. And we pulled out, I think it was 15 black garbage bags full of clothes, full. stuff full. And she called me the next day and she said, Jessica, I feel like I have a whole new wardrobe. I can see what I love. There's only everything in here that I love. And it's easy for me to get dressed. It's easy for me to choose. I don't have, I don't get overwhelmed when I come into my closet. And we'd taken out half of the things in her closet. Same thing happened with another woman, a doctor. I came and did her closet and she was like, oh, no, all my boots are on the top shelf. We don't have to do those. I know I love them all. We got rid of half of them. She said, oh, no, we don't have to do my jewelry. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do your jewelry. I'll straighten out your jewelry, lay it out on the floor, and then you can choose what you love. And she wrote me and she said, oh my God, Jessica, I'm wearing my jewelry for the first time in years. People are complimenting me on my clothes choices. I feel lighter. I mean, it's crazy how it's an energetic thing. It's not about your stuff. That's the motto of my business. It's not about your stuff at all. It has nothing to do with stuff.
It has everything to do with your alignment with you.
Yeah. It's about energetically aligning yourself with everything in your surroundings. Every pencil, every plastic bag, every $600 purse, every, everything. And most people get it. I had another client who was, she was on the speaker circuit. She was a very in demand speaker. And in those days, when you did a speaking engagement, you usually at the podium, you would sell like a set of DVDs or CDs or whatever. That was what you wanted, right? And they were expensive. They were really expensive. They were hundreds of dollars. But a lot of times when people would go to these events that were the speakers, there'd be other speakers there and they would trade. I'll give you, here, do you want this for free? So she had an entire shelf filled with other people's sets of DVDs or CDs. Right. And she was like, oh, Jessica, I can't even think about going through that. I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I said to her, what you're going to do is you're going to pick up one. I'm going to hand you one and you're going to hold it in your hand and you're going to close your eyes and you're going to say, does this give me energy or does it take energy away? We went through that thing in 10 minutes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Boom. Yeah. And that is like, if I could summarize the actual letting go part, the physical letting go of each item, Marie Kondo turned it into a meme of like, right. Does it spark joy? But I was saying this stuff, 20 years ago. Do I love it? Do I love it? Does it give me energy or does it take energy away? And it's just so easy. Even people who don't believe in that, they think it's mumbo jumbo or hocus pocus. They get it. They totally get it.
So how's it helped you in your life? This
in
way
terms of what?
In terms of how you move through your daily life, how you move through your own home, your own space.
I've always been somebody who has a flow in and flow out of things, I even here where I live now, it's not the custom to give things away. I'm constantly giving things to my neighbors, constantly. And and they're not like dirt poor or anything, but I gave my neighbor last week, I gave her a potato ricer, those things that clamp down, because we had two and we didn't need two. And she could not believe it. She was like, thank you. But to me, it's nothing. Like, if I don't need it, why do I want it in my space? Why do I want it taking up real estate? Energetically, why do I need two ricers? Like, why? It weighs on me when I have things I don't need. And it's very rare that I give away something and then wish I hadn't. Very rare. Like, not even once a year.
That you give something away and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Right. Very rare. Every once in a while, yeah, but it's never anything major.
No,
because a lot of people are afraid of that. They're terrified. Oh my God, if I give this away, what if I need it next week? And then every once in a while, somebody will say, oh yeah, well, I gave that away and I need it the next week. It's like, okay, but how many other things did you give away that you'll never need again? Yeah, you might make a mistake every once in a blue moon. Was it something extremely important and valuable? Well, no.
No.
Had you used it in the previous 10 years? Well, no.
So it's being okay too with whatever decisions we make then. So even down the road. Like let's say, I don't know, let's say
Yeah,
you gave away your ricer and then
yeah,
3 days later the one you have at home broke,
yeah.
and so but I think and you can correct me, what I'm hearing is even if we give it away and find out we could have used it later, to be okay with choices, and
Yeah, I mean,
choice.
like I said, if that was the only thing that I ever gave away in my life and I needed it 3 days later, it'd be one thing. But I've given away hundreds and probably thousands of things in my lifetime, right? And they've come back to me. Other things have come into my life because of that.
Okay, do you think are all the things that come back physical things?
No, no. I just, to me, stuff is just stuff. And I know that there's a lot of, I'll give another example. I know a lot of people have a hard time letting go of things. They hold them, and they're like, I can't give this away. I can't give this away because of one thing or another. Example, I had a woman who we were going through a box of her stuff, and I was in charge of like throwing away wrappers and old envelopes and all that kind of stuff while she went through and made decisions about the important stuff. And I came upon a shot glass that was absolutely broken, like dangerous, right? And I went to throw it out. She's, no, 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 don't throw that out. And I said, what? And she said, no, when I was in nursing school, that was the bar that every night after school, all of us used to go to. And we laughed and we had such a good time. And it reminds me of it. And I said, okay, there's a shelf. Well, there was a shelf right next to me. I said, this is going to be, I forgot what I called it, but basically we're going to take the charge off of it, like the memory. We're going to take the charge off of the item. We're going to put it in this little special magic box. We'll put it here on the shelf and we'll come back to it later and see see how you feel. So we went about our business for another half an hour. And then I took the shot glass and I showed it to her. She goes, oh my God, throw that out. That's my toddler's could get hurt from it. It had zero attachment to it. Zero. Because we project memories and feelings and guilt and shame and happy memories or memories of us when we were more an idealized version of ourselves. Like I had a client who had been to law school like maybe 25 years previously, and she would not throw out her old law books or the notebooks. She wouldn't. And there was no reason. They were moldy, mice had chewed on some of them. There was no reason to keep them. And yet the attachment to the idea of who she had been was stronger than the logic of it.
I like how you explain that attachment of, or who we thought we were.
Sometimes it's who we thought we were. Sometimes it's who we were. I've had retired teachers who had a really hard time giving up their teaching materials, even though they hadn't taught in 10 or 15 years and never would teach again. And even if they did teach again, they wouldn't use the 30-year-old teaching materials. But
right.
Somehow their identity was entrapped in these items. And, I never pressure anybody to give something up that they don't want to. But I do put them through a process of how to extract the feeling or the memory from the item. So I call it, sometimes I have people breathe it in. I say, breathe in all the memory, all the feelings that you have about it. Breathe it in so that there's none left in there. And then they look at it and they go, oh, boom, throw it out. It is zero effort for them to throw it out because it doesn't hold anything for them anymore.
So you're
There's nothing.
taking the memory and you're actually integrating it into their own self so they don't have to externalize it.
Exactly.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah. And you know, what I'm all about is harmony, freedom, and peace of mind. That's what I want for my clients. Harmony, freedom, and peace of mind. Because when their environment is in harmony with who they are, they have the freedom to be in the present moment and act in a responsive way instead of a reactive way. And then they have peace of mind in their daily life and in all their interactions.
What it feels like what you're describing is like a form of shadow work. It's like what shadow being our feelings that we don't want to approach,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then taking that and
It's
saying,
just,
you know what, it's not so bad to approach those because they're still me.
no. Yeah. And here's the thing. There's so many different ways to approach our inner work. Letting go of things in our environment that hold us back, it's just a portal, it's just a doorway or a threshold. I use the word threshold a lot because in the work that I do with people, they literally are crossing a threshold. They're going from the way that their life used to be to the way that their life is and can be in the future. And it's just one way. It's not the way, it's a way. And some people are attracted to that because it serves a dual purpose. It's like if you go to therapy, like with a therapist, listen, I don't knock it at all, but all you get is therapy. If you do it with decluttering and the shadow work that goes with letting go and making those decisions and aligning your environment with who you are, you also get a clean environment.
Yeah, I love it because that's the whole reason that we're having these conversations for this podcast, is to show that there's a million and one different ways to approach. And
there's many ways to approach it, as there are people.
And you need to just try it out. Try which one it is and see if it works for you.
Exactly.
Jessica, if somebody wants to know more about this, do you have a book or a website or any way that somebody could read more about your method or check in with you?
My Facebook page is Chaordia, Life at the Intersection of Chaos and Order. Yeah, the best way that people can reach me is by email. It's harmony@chaordia.life. So yeah, I love working with people in groups. I love working with people in, like I just had a woman who runs the workshops at her church, and she asked me if I would give a workshop, a Zoom workshop for her.
So you do Zoom workshops. So
yes.
people can contact you about doing a Zoom workshop on all of this, because that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. I work on Zoom. That's how I work. So I can do workshops. I can work one-on-one with people. Yeah. When I say Chaordia is a word that I borrowed from a leadership technique or leadership practice, which is called chaotic leadership.
Okay.
And I borrowed that and turned it into Chaordia, which to me, it's a blend of chaos and order. Oh. I take people from chaos to order. But to me, Chaordia is a place. It's a place that we often live, which is the blend of chaos and order.
It's all that integration you were talking about earlier. It's
and the threshold, moving through the threshold. It's really like on a spiritual level, it's an initiatic process. People who come to me to do the work are almost always in transition. Maybe they're getting married or they're getting divorced or their children have left the house or they are going into a new business or they want to refocus their life. They're almost always, because I think in those liminal places, in those liminal situations, you want your environment to change. You want the energy around you to be more in harmony with who you are in that moment and which direction you're going in. You don't want to be held back by stuff. whether it's emotional stuff or physical stuff or mental stuff or spiritual stuff. You want to clear that. You want to clear the way so that you can go forward
I love all
in
that.
harmony. Yeah, in harmony and freedom and peace of mind.
That's great. And, I think I'll be talking to you about what a workshop entails and maybe set that up for my crew here. So,
Oh, that would be great. That'd be great. I would love that.
is there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share, or some kind of maybe a favorite quote that keeps you going, that inspires you, or affirmation?
I have this really great little pretty meme on my desktop. It says, focus on the powerful, euphoric, magical, synchronistic, beautiful parts of life, and the universe will keep giving them to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jessica, so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Jen. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast and for sharing time with Jessica Waters today. You can find her on Facebook under Jessica Waters Keordia. That's Jessica Waters Keordia. If you put it, the little @ sign and all one word on your Facebook, you can find her there. You can also connect with her by typing out an email to Harmony, HARMONY, @Keordia.life. And Keordia is spelled CHAORDIA, and that's Keordia.life. Harmony @Keordia.life. She is a beautiful resource. I am so happy that I've just recently got to know her, and yet I've learned so much already, and about an approach to decluttering that I hadn't even thought about before. That the emotional and the spiritual ties that we have to our space around us and how we fill it or how we don't fill it is just, it's been really, really neat for me to contemplate and to think about, because it is so true. I know sometimes I feel very overwhelmed and things get just caked on, and I have 2 teenage sons that live with me, and all of our stuff sometimes just gets piled on top of each other, and we are all very good at saying, I will do that later, and putting it down and walking away, and then putting something else down on top of that and walking away. And to contemplate that kind of structure is just a way to not have to face some things that we don't want to face, or face some uncomfort. And who wants to be uncomfortable at all? But I know when those spaces are clean, like that countertop I talked to her about in my kitchen, I know when those spaces are clean, I feel so much lighter. But just getting to that spot that I even want to do it sometimes is, it's not the easiest. And I think we all can relate to that on some level, whether you're somebody that takes care of everything right away or not, or whether you have patches in your house. Like she mentioned, the one lady that had one room where she just put everything. I know people that have their house is just beautiful, and then you go to help them with something later and find that all of everything has been hidden in the closets and the cupboards, so nobody sees that. And and to correlate that with our lives and how we move in our lives, and how that we work with that for our healing. It's wonderful things to contemplate and to sit with and to move with and to be uncomfortable with. And in that discomfort, we learn so much about ourselves. So I'm ready to dive in. If you have taken the chance to dive in after you hear this and you want to share those stories, please send us whatever it is you're working on, whatever your thoughts are about this podcast, about other episodes of the podcast. If you have some areas that you'd like us to explore, guests like Jessica that you feel would be advantageous for all of us to hear from, don't be afraid to drop a line. You can reach me at boltsoflove@gmail.com. That's BOLTSOFLOVE@gmail.com. And that'll hit my email box. Or you could go to boltsoflove.com. You can also find me at Unity in Edinburgh. That is my home center where I'm spiritual leader. And you are welcome there anytime. You're welcome to this podcast anytime. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And take some time, sit with your stuff. Find out if it brings you energy or if it takes energy away from you. And be well, do well. We'll see you again here real soon. Take care.